By 7 in the morning, I could tell the day would be bad from the way the elevator in my building refused to close unless I leaned my shoulder against the doors and apologized to it. I lived on the 5th floor of an old villa in Haebangchon, in a room narrow enough that I could touch the refrigerator from my mattress if I stretched one foot out, and the elevator was older than my landlord's excuses. It groaned, opened again, showed me the dim corridor, and waited for me to admit defeat. "I understand," I told it, balancing a canvas bag full of caption drafts, a lunchbox, and 3 envelopes from creditors. "We are both tired and underfunded." The doors finally shut as if insulted into obedience, and I used the slow ride down to check whether the swelling under my left eye had faded. It had not. My cousin Mirai had thrown a pillow at me 2 nights before because I had tried to smile through a fever, missed the pillow, hit the bed frame instead, and now looked as if I had lost a serious argument with furniture. I was 29, an Omega, and a caption editor for a small accessibility studio in Yongno that turned museum lectures, legal seminars, and historical documentaries into subtitles and audio description scripts. It was not glamorous. Most of my work involved catching swallowed syllables from professors who believed microphones were decorative, researching names of dead scholars at 2 in the morning, and arguing with clients who wanted captions more elegant, without understanding that deaf viewers needed accuracy, not poetry. Still, it suited me. I liked making what people said visible. I liked the discipline of listening twice before deciding what mattered. I liked the quiet satisfaction of giving someone a path into a room that had not been built for them. My dream in a private corner of my mind I visited only when rent was paid and my mother's prescriptions had been picked up was to open a small studio that trained Omega freelancers and disabled editors together, a place with windows, stable contracts, and no men in suits asking why Compassion should have an invoice. That morning, my world was smaller than the dream. It was Mirai sleeping on my floor because the aunt who had taken us in after my father disappeared had lost her deposit. It was my mother's hospital bill folded under a mug to keep it from curling. It was my old phone vibrating with a message from Nam Kitai, the man my uncle insisted I would marry before the week ended. It was the fact that my father had signed a loan using my name before vanishing into some provincial motel, leaving behind a forged consent form, 3 witnesses who suddenly remembered nothing, and a debt that grew every time I breathed near it. Kite was an alpha with a smile polished by money and a temper that showed through the polish whenever I said no. He owned a chain of private clubs and a lending company that pretended to be a consulting firm. My uncle called him practical. Mirai called him that walking lawsuit. My mother, when she still had the strength to sit up, had squeezed my wrist and told me not to trade my life for hers. I had lied and said I never would. Work began with a corrupted audio file, a client who used the phrase small favor to mean unpaid labor, and my manager, Oh Da-in, arriving with coffee in one hand and a resignation letter in the other. Da-in was 32, beta, and built like a person who had survived every disappointing man in Seoul through sarcasm and proper file naming. She had started the studio with 2 partners who had slowly learned to praise her in meetings and erase her from contracts. Her resignation letter was printed on cheap office paper, folded into quarters, and held together by a blue paper clip shaped like a rabbit. "I am not submitting it yet," she said, putting it beside my keyboard. "I am just letting it watch me." That is either motivational or workplace haunting. Both. Did you eat? I lifted my lunchbox. That is rice. Rice is a meal if your expectations have been disciplined. She opened my lunchbox, added 2 boiled eggs from her tote bag, and pushed it back. Your expectations are starving. I wanted to thank her, but gratitude between us had become too heavy lately. Instead, I said, "If you resign, who will bully me into nutrition? You will have to develop self-respect." Cruel. Dayan's mouth curved for half a second, then flattened when my phone lit up. The screen showed my uncle's name. She looked at it, then at me. Still tonight? Engagement dinner, I said. Not wedding. He is calling it dinner because he thinks words are costumes. And you are going? I am appearing long enough to keep Ki-tae from sending someone to the hospital. Dayan set her coffee down. Seon-u. My full name was Han Seon-u, but when she said it like that, it sounded like a complaint filed on my behalf. I lowered my voice because the new intern at the back desk already thought my life was a melodrama he was too polite to overhear. Mirai has an exam tomorrow. My mother's doctor moved the next treatment up. If I refuse publicly before I have legal support, he can make a mess fast. I just need time. Time is what men ask for when they have already taken money. I am aware. Are you? Her face changed before she said the next part. It became less boss, more friend, which was worse. You make things sound manageable when they are not. I make captions for bureaucrats who say, inclusive growth, for 90 minutes without blinking. I can make anything sound manageable. Dayan did not laugh. She tapped the resignation letter. My partners sent me a buyout proposal last night. They want the studio name, the client list, and my silence. I thought I was angry. Then I saw your uncle downstairs this morning, asking the security guard whether you still worked here. The room seemed to shrink around my desk. He came here? He left when I told him I would call the police. He smiled the way men smile when they know police reports can be delayed. She slid a business card toward me. A lawyer. Not expensive. Not impressed by alphas. Call her. I took the card because refusing help only looked dignified until it became vanity. Before I could answer, my phone rang again. This time it was Mirai. Her voice came out too bright. Appa, quick question. If a man in a black sedan is parked outside the building and keeps pretending to read a newspaper upside down, is that normal rich people behavior? My chair scraped back. Do not go outside. I was not planning to ask him for tutoring. Mirai. I know. I locked the door. I took a photo. He has terrible shoes. Dayan stood before I did. Oh, go, she said. I will cover your files. I grabbed my coat, the lawyer's card, and the envelopes from creditors because I no longer trusted paper to remain where I left it. On the street, the morning had turned sharp with the kind of cold that made every bus exhale steam. I ran to the subway while my phone buzzed with another message from Ki-tae. Wear the navy suit. Smile. Do not embarrass your family tonight. I answered nothing. If I had learned one skill from debt collectors, alphas, and museum directors, it was that silence sometimes saved your throat for better fights. By the time I reached my building, the sedan had gone, leaving tire marks and a cigarette butt near the curb. Mirai opened the door with a kitchen knife in one hand and my mother's pill organizer in the other. She was 24, an omega like me, though she had inherited my mother's stubborn chin and none of my talent for pretending to be calm. She wore a hoodie from her old nursing college and had taped her anatomy notes to the wall beside my bookshelves. Before you lecture, she said, I know the knife is dramatic. It was the biggest thing in the drawer. That is a bread knife. Exactly. Symbolism. I checked the window, the stairwell, the lock. Did he speak to you? No, he took a call. I heard your name. My skin prickled. Pack a bag. Her expression lost its playfulness. Appa. 2 days of clothes, medication lists, your exam notes. We cannot run every time they park outside. We can run when I say pack a bag. Mirai stared at me, then shoved the knife into the sink with more force than the sink deserved. I hate this. I know. I hate that you talk like a parent when you are also scared. I wanted to correct her. I wanted to tell her I was not scared, only strategic, only tired, only calculating routes and risks. The lie would have been insulting. pack," I repeated softly. "Please." She did. I called the lawyer from Dae-in's card while standing between my mattress and the refrigerator. Attorney Park So-young answered on the fourth ring, listened without interrupting, and asked for photos of the forged consent form, the loan notices, and Ki-tae's messages. Her voice was clipped, practical, and more reassuring than kindness would have been. "Do not attend anything alone," she said. "If there is a gathering tonight, record everything. Do not sign. Do not drink anything handed to you by their side. Send me the location." "The location is the Seoul Crown Hotel." There was a small pause. "That is Yu territory." "Yu?" "Saryon Holdings owns the private security contract. Their CEO is Yu Jae-han. If your uncle chose that hotel, he either wants status or protection." "Should I cancel?" "If you cancel without relocation for your family, he may escalate. Go only if you have a clean exit. Share live location with me and someone you trust. I will send a notice of representation this afternoon." After the call, I sat on the edge of my mattress and watched Mirai fold socks with shaking hands. Rain began against the window, faint at first, then steady. I had always liked rain when I could stay inside. It softened the city's edges and made cheap rooms feel less temporary. That day, it sounded like a clock. Every drop counted down to an evening I had not agreed to, a dinner I could not simply refuse, and a man who believed my name was something he could write on a contract because my father had written it there first. The Seoul Crown Hotel rose from Yeouido like a polished threat. Its glass reflected the river, the traffic, and the darkening sky with equal indifference. I arrived at 7 wearing the navy suit because refusing that instruction would make Ki-tae focus on the wrong battle. My real defiance was under the jacket, a small recorder clipped inside my shirt, the lawyer's number written on my wrist beneath my watch, and the knowledge that Mirai was already at Dae-in's apartment with 2 bags and the bread knife she had insisted on bringing for morale. Dae-in had sent me a photo of Mirai asleep under a blanket covered in cartoon bears, followed by 3 messages. "Do not be brave if clever is available. Do not drink. If you vanish, I will haunt every man involved." The private dining floor was full of money, trying not to raise its voice. Men in tailored suits stood near floral arrangements taller than children. Women in silk moved through the foyer with expressions trained by family negotiations. Security staff watched hands, not faces. I recognized my uncle near the entrance by the way he was laughing too loudly beside Ki-tae. Uncle Han Daisik had my father's eyes and none of his softness. He had stepped into our lives after my father vanished with the air of a savior, then quietly moved every document, debt, and decision closer to his own pocket. "There you are," he said, gripping my shoulder. His fingers dug in where no camera could see. "You look presentable." I smiled because the recorder was running. "Good evening, Uncle." Ki-tae looked me over as if inspecting a vehicle he intended to buy damaged and repair badly. He was handsome in the way expensive lamps were handsome, all surface and no mercy. "You are late." The subway had delays. "I sent a car." "I did not request one." His smile thinned. "Still proud." "Still literate," I said. "So I avoid entering vehicles I did not book." My uncle's grip tightened. Ki-tae laughed once, short and amused for the benefit of the people nearby. This is what I like about him. He has spirit. What he liked was the idea of breaking it in public and calling the result harmony. The dinner room had 3 long tables, a low stage, and enough white orchids to make the air feel expensive. I was placed beside Ki-tae, across from a notary my uncle introduced as a family friend. A folder lay near my plate. I did not touch it. For the first half hour, people ate sea bream and spoke around me. They discussed venues, schedules, property transfers, the proper language for announcing an Omega marriage that was private but joyful, as if my body were a public relations issue with legs. I answered direct questions politely and left every glass untouched except the water I had watched a waiter pour. Then Ki-tae put a hand over mine. I moved my hand to my napkin. Conversation paused at our section of the table. Ki-tae's smile stayed in place. Shy? No. Then do not behave as if affection is an insult. I looked at him, at my uncle, at the notary pretending to study his soup. Affection requires permission. Someone coughed. My uncle's face reddened. Ki-tae leaned close enough that only I could hear him. Your mother's treatment center can lose funding with one phone call. My fingers tightened on the napkin. I thought of my mother sleeping under hospital sheets, of Mirai with her textbooks, of Diane's resignation letter watching her from the desk. Fear entered me, found the old places, and knew exactly where to sit. I hated that. I hated how practiced terror could become. The stage lights brightened. My uncle stood to make a speech. The folder was pushed toward me by the notary. A preliminary statement, he murmured. Symbolic tonight, formal filings later. I opened it because evidence mattered. The document described voluntary intention, debt reconciliation, family unity. My signature line waited at the bottom like a trap with good typography. I took one photo under the table and sent it to Attorney Park. A second later, her reply appeared. Leave now if possible. Document is coercive. Security may be compromised. Leave. It sounded simple until Ki-tae's guard moved to stand between the door and the hallway. My uncle began thanking everyone for helping guide a difficult young man back to family. People smiled. Ki-tae lifted his glass. The guard checked his phone. At the far side of the room, beyond the glass wall, a service door opened for a staff member carrying wine. I stood so suddenly my chair scraped. Ki-tae caught my wrist. Where are you going? Restroom. I will walk you. No. I pulled once. He did not release me. The recorder pressed against my chest like a second pulse. Let go before every person here hears me ask again. For a moment his face showed the man beneath the manners. Then he released me with a soft laugh. Do not be long. I walked, not ran, because running gives men an excuse to chase. The service door was still closing when I reached it. I slipped through behind the wine cart into a corridor of stainless steel, stacked crates and staff moving too quickly to care about one guest in a navy suit. My breath shook. I kept walking until the corridor split near a freight elevator. The sign said, Staff Only. I pressed the button anyway. Voices sounded behind me. My uncle, Ki-tae, the guard. The elevator did not arrive. A door opened to my right. A man stepped out, holding a phone to his ear, and stopped when he saw me. He was tall, broad-shouldered, without looking bulky, dressed in a black suit cut so cleanly it seemed less worn than issued. His hair was combed back from a face that would have been handsome if expression had not been rationed from it. 2 security men stood behind him, quiet as punctuation. He looked at my wrist first, where Ki-tae's fingers had left a red mark, then at my face. I will call you back, he said into the phone, and ended the call. I am not staff, I said, because panic makes people announce irrelevant facts. I know. That was not an invitation to ask questions. I had not started. Behind me, the voices came closer. The man's gaze shifted past my shoulder. He made a small gesture with 2 fingers, and one of his security men moved down the hall as if he had been sent to adjust the weather. I recognized him then, not from tabloids, but from the financial footage I had captioned 3 months earlier for a documentary on port redevelopment. Yu Jae-han, CEO of Sarion Holdings, the man whose company owned half the logistics routes that respectable newspapers discussed, and the other half that police sources refused to put in writing. Alpha. 34. He had sat before a government panel while senators tried to imply organized crime without saying it, and he had answered each question with enough precision to make accusation sound childish. In person, he was worse, not louder. Worse because he seemed to occupy the hallway by permission of no one. The security man returned. "Mr. Nam is coming this way." Yu Jae-han's mouth tightened by a fraction. "Of course he is." I took one step back. "I can handle—" "No," he said. The word was calm, but it cut cleanly through my lie. I bristled because even accurate dismissal can feel like a hand on the back of your neck. "You do not know what I can handle." "I know Nam Ki-tae. That is enough." The freight elevator opened with a sigh. I should have stepped in. Instead, the corridor door at the far end swung open, and Ki-tae appeared with my uncle behind him. Ki-tae's expression changed when he saw Yu. Surprise, calculation, then pleasure, as if the evening had become more useful. "Director Yu," he said, "I did not realize you were entertaining guests on this floor." Yu Jae-han did not turn fully toward him. "I am not." Ki-tae's gaze slid to me. "Seon-u, you made people worry." "I am leaving." My uncle laughed as he approached. "Leaving? You are emotional. Come back inside." Yu's security men did not move, but the hallway narrowed around them. Ki-tae noticed. "This is a private family matter." Yu looked at him then. "You are in my building. The hotel is not yours. The cameras, security access, and private floor lease are." He glanced at my wrist again. "And he has said he is leaving." My uncle tried another smile. "Director, you misunderstand. My nephew is promised to Mr. Nam. He gets dramatic when nervous." I opened my mouth, but Yu spoke first. "Promised people do not run through service corridors with marks on their wrists." Every sound in the hallway seemed to sharpen. Ki-tae's smile slipped. "Careful." Yu's expression did not change. "Choose a more interesting warning." I should have taken the elevator and vanished while powerful men measured each other. Instead, I stood there with rainwater on my shoes, a recorder against my chest, and the sudden awareness that the worst men in my life had hesitated because another bad man had entered the room with better posture. Safety can be a costume. I knew that. But for 1 second, breathing became easier. Yu turned back to me. "You need one night?" The question was so precise it startled me. "What?" "One night, a clean exit, witnesses that you left with someone they cannot pressure quickly." His eyes moved to the folder still under my arm. "And perhaps a reason for Nam to stop claiming a private engagement." Ki-tae laughed, but it came out wrong. "You cannot be serious." Yu ignored him. "I need a stranger," he said to me, low enough that the others could not catch every word. "A controlled scandal. Public enough to break an alliance being arranged for me tonight. Clean enough not to trap you beyond what you agreed to. If you walk out with me, cameras will catch it. By morning, no one here will be able to present you as Nam Ki-tae's intended without explaining why you left my private floor." I stared at him. "You are asking me to become a rumor?" "I am offering to let you use mine." That sounded clever until I remembered cleverness often arrived with invoices. "What do you get?" "Time." "From whom?" "My family." There it was, the place where our problems touched without becoming the same. Ki-tae understood before I did. His face lost color. "Yu Jae-han, do not." Yu finally gave him a small, cold smile. "Then leave him alone." My uncle grabbed my sleeve. "You ungrateful—" Yu's second security man stepped forward. Not fast, not violently, just enough. My uncle released me as if dignity had always been his plan. I looked at Yu. "No touching unless I agree." "Agreed." "No private room where I cannot leave." "Agreed." I choose what the cameras see. His eyes sharpened, not offended, almost approving. Tell me. I swallowed. We walk out through the main lobby. Not hidden. You offer your arm. I decide whether to take it. If reporters ask anything, I say I am leaving a dinner where I was pressured. You do not speak for me. For the first time, something like interest moved across his face. And the scandal? I will be seen with you. That seems to be enough for your world. One of his security men made a sound that might have been a smothered laugh. Yu did not look away from me. It is. Ki-tae stepped closer. Seon-u, think very carefully. He will use you worse than I would. I looked at the man who had threatened my mother's treatment and still called it family. You set a low bar. Yu offered his arm. I considered refusing just to prove I could. Then I remembered the guard at the door, the document in my hand, the message from Attorney Park, Mirai asleep under borrowed blankets. Pride was useful only when it did not drag my family behind it. I placed my fingertips on Yu's sleeve, lightly enough that I could let go in an instant. We walked past Ki-tae and my uncle without another word. The hotel lobby was a river of marble, chandeliers, and people pretending not to stare. Yu's presence changed the air before we entered it. Conversations thinned, phones tilted. Near the front desk, a cluster of reporters who must have been waiting for some business figure turned as one body. Yu did not hurry. I had spent years captioning powerful men and knew the rhythm of performance, the pauses, the half-turns, the placement of hands. He performed absence. He gave them almost nothing, and that made every small detail valuable. Director Yu, one reporter called. Is it true the Haseong alliance will be announced tonight? Yu's arm remained steady under my fingers. He did not answer. Another camera lifted toward me. Who is with you? I released Yu's sleeve before fear could make the decision for me. Cameras clicked. You stopped as soon as I did. Not before, not after. That mattered in a way I did not want to examine. I turned toward the reporter. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. My name is Han Seon-u. I am leaving a private dinner where I was pressured to sign a document I did not consent to. I am safe at this moment. Any statement claiming I am engaged to Nam Ki-tae is false. The lobby went very quiet. Yu looked at me, and I could not read his expression. Ki-tae appeared at the edge of the lobby with my uncle, both halted by the number of lenses now pointed their way. I saw the calculation break across Ki-tae's face. If he grabbed me, he would be filmed. If he smiled, the statement remained. If he denied it, he gave the press a story. I had not escaped him forever, but I had taken one night and made it public. Yu said, Mr. Han will leave under my protection until his attorney arrives. I cut him a look. He added, if he permits it. Several reporters stared as if no alpha had ever corrected himself in public. I almost smiled, which would have ruined the effect. I permit transportation, I said. Not possession. This time his security man definitely coughed to hide a laugh. We left through the front entrance under camera flashes. Rain struck the canopy hard enough to blur the streetlights. A black car waited. Door open. I hesitated. Yu noticed. You can call your attorney from inside. Door stays unlocked. My driver will take you anywhere you name. And you? I have another problem to create. I looked back at the lobby, where Ki-tae was on the phone, and my uncle looked as if he had swallowed a bone. My whole body trembled now that motion had stopped. I hated that Yu saw it. He took off his suit jacket and held it out, not placing it over my shoulders. I did not take it at first. Is this for cameras? The cameras are behind us. Then why? Your hands are blue. I glanced down. He was right. Rain, stress, hunger, anger. My fingers had gone pale around the folder. I took the jacket because hypothermia did not become independence simply because I disliked owing people. It was heavy and lined with dark silk. It smelled faintly of clean wool and rain, nothing dramatic, nothing that explained why my chest tightened when I pulled it around myself. In the car, I called Attorney Park. She arrived at Da-in's apartment 40 minutes later, where I sat on the floor between Mirai and Da-in, wearing Yu Jae-han's jacket like evidence. Attorney Park reviewed the video clips already circulating online, the document I had photographed, the recording from my shirt, and the debt notices. Her face remained calm, but the pen in her hand moved faster with every page. "This public statement helps," she said. "Yu's name helps more. Nam cannot quietly file marriage intention papers now without inviting scrutiny." Da-in poured tea with the expression of someone willing to poison several men if given a legal pathway. "And you?" Attorney Park looked at me. "What did he ask for?" "One scandal. That is never all men like him ask for." Mireille, sitting with the bread knife across her lap like a folkloric guardian, frowned. "He helped." "He also needed something," Attorney Park said. "Both can be true." That sentence followed me into the early hours. Both can be true. Yu Jae-han had helped me without grabbing, spoken for me, and then corrected himself, offered a scandal with terms instead of demanding gratitude. He had also pulled me into his orbit for reasons that involved his family, his alliance, his timing. I was not naive enough to confuse being useful with being cherished, but I was not so proud that I would throw away leverage because it had arrived wearing a black suit. At 3 in the morning, my phone received a message from an unknown number. "This is Yu Jae-han. Your attorney may call my legal director at 9 o'clock. Nam Kitae's people have been removed from the hotel security list. Your family's current location has not been requested by me and will not be. I need my jacket returned eventually." I read it twice. Then I showed it to Attorney Park, who asked for the number and began typing before I could answer. Da-in looked over my shoulder. "He texts like a court order." Mireille yawned. "A polite court order." I wrote back, "Thank you for clarifying the location issue. Your jacket is safe. It is also unnecessarily expensive." His reply arrived 6 minutes later. "It is insured against rain and hostage negotiations." I stared at the message. Da-in said, "Did the mafia CEO make a joke?" "I think so." Disturbing. Mirai leaned against my shoulder. "Can I sleep now, or are more terrifying rich men joining the group chat?" "Sleep," I said, touching her hair. "No more men tonight." That promise lasted until morning. By 8, the scandal had grown legs and purchased formal shoes. Blogs posted photos of me leaving with Yu. Business channels speculated whether he had broken the Haseong alliance. Gossip accounts described me as a secret lover, an informant, a hostage, a charming nobody, and, in one case, a mysterious Omega pianist, which I considered the most flattering falsehood. Kitae's side released a statement calling me unstable. My uncle told a reporter I had been confused by outside influence. Attorney Park sent legal notices before breakfast. Da-in arrived at the studio with dark circles, 3 coffees, and a new rule that nobody in the office was allowed to say my name near a window. At 11, Yu's legal director called. At noon, Attorney Park told me Yu wanted a meeting. "No," Mireille said immediately from the couch. Da-in agreed. "Meet a wall first. It would be safer and have similar emotional availability." Attorney Park did not smile. "He is offering documents. Surveillance from the hotel, visitor logs, the security report showing Nam's guard blocked the exit, and, according to his legal director, a proposal." "What proposal?" "A temporary legal arrangement that prevents Nam from asserting any prior claim and blocks your uncle from acting as family representative." Mirai sat up. "Legal arrangement means what?" Attorney Park looked at me rather than her. A registered marriage. The room did not explode. It did something worse. It became so still I could hear the refrigerator in Da-in's kitchen clicking on. "No," Mirai said again, but this time her voice was smaller. I folded my hands together to keep them from shaking. Why would he offer that? "Because his alliance collapsed last night," Attorney Park said. "His family will try to force another by the end of the week. If he appears to have chosen a spouse outside their network, under circumstances already public, it buys him control of the succession vote. For you, it creates immediate legal distance from Nam and your uncle. As a spouse, you can challenge third-party coercion, demand protective orders, and fund litigation without it looking like witness tampering or charity." That sounds like a very elegant cage. It can be, or it can be a tool. Attorney Park tapped the table. "The difference is the terms." Da-in crossed her arms. "I dislike every syllable." "So do I," Attorney Park said. "But I dislike Nam Kite with documents and no counterweight more." I walked to the window. Seoul looked washed and metallic after rain, buses moving through puddles, office workers stepping around wet leaves. Somewhere in the city, my mother's nurse would be checking her blood pressure. Somewhere, Kite would be deciding whether threats or charm would cost less. Somewhere, Yu Jae-han was turning a scandal into a strategy with the same neatness he applied to everything else. Mirai came to stand beside me. "Appa, you do not have to save everyone by marrying a terrifying stranger." "I know." "Do you? Because you do this thing where you say, 'I know,' and then quietly bleed on paperwork." I breathed out through my nose. "Accurate." She bumped her shoulder against mine. "Let me quit school for a semester, or I can work." "No." "See, you get to make sacrifices, but I get protected like furniture." "You are not furniture." "Then stop arranging the room around me." That landed harder than Kite's threats. Mirai had a life I kept trying to preserve by making decisions around it. A nursing exam she no longer wanted. A part-time job she had hidden from me. Friends she avoided because explaining our family had become exhausting. My protection had become another set of walls, softer than Kite's, but still walls. "We talk tonight," I said. "Really talk. About school, about work, about what you want." She searched my face. "Even if you hate it, I will attempt to hate it quietly." She almost smiled. "Progress." The meeting with you took place in Attorney Park's office, not his. That was my first condition. The second was that Da-in sat beside me. The third was that Yu's security remained outside. He agreed to all three through his legal director before arriving exactly on time. In daylight, without rain and crisis, Yu Jae-han looked less like a rescue and more like a liability that had learned manners. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, and carried a flat document case. The mark on my wrist had faded to yellow. His eyes found it anyway, then moved away before the look became invasive. "Mr. Han," he said. "Director Yu." Da-in leaned toward me. "Should I bow to the scandal or just glare?" "Glaring is your native language." Yu heard. His mouth changed by a millimeter. "Ms. O." Da-in narrowed her eyes. "Do not research me unless you plan to pay my consulting rate." I read the client list of anyone present in a legal meeting involving me. "Invoice him," I murmured. Attorney Park cleared her throat, though her mouth twitched. Yu opened the document case and placed 3 folders on the table. Hotel footage, security logs, a statement from the employee whose service door Mr. Han used. Copies are already with your attorney. "And the proposal?" I asked. He placed a 4th folder down but did not push it toward me. A 6-month registered marriage, publicly described as a private relationship accelerated by last night's events. Separate rooms. separate finances except for a support account administered through your attorney for medical bills, litigation, housing, and documented security needs. No physical expectations. No access to your phone, work, or personal contacts. No relocation unless you approve it. You continue your profession. Your cousin chooses her own housing and school arrangements. Exit permitted by you at any time after the immediate filings are secured, with protection and legal funding continuing until Nam and your uncle's claims are resolved. Dayan stopped glaring long enough to look surprised. Attorney Park's pen moved. I did not touch the folder. "What do you need?" I asked. "A spouse before my father's emergency council on Friday." "That is 3 days." "Yes." "Convenient." "Desperate," he corrected. That honesty was so plain it made me cautious. "Why a stranger? You could find someone in your world who understands the rules." "Everyone in my world belongs to someone." "And I do not?" His gaze met mine. That was the point of last night. I looked down at the folder. "You chose me because I made a public statement. I chose you because Nam Ki-tae's claim was useful to break, because you negotiated in a service corridor while being chased, because you corrected me in front of cameras, because if I entered this with someone trained to obey my family, I would lose before the vote began." That sounds like admiration if I squint, and exploitation if I read normally. Both may be present. Attorney Park's eyebrows rose, possibly at hearing her earlier sentence returned by a mafia heir who should not have known it. I leaned back. "You understand that I will not perform affection on command. I need legal fact, not affection. No public kissing." "Agreed." "No stories about romance invented without my approval." "Agreed." "No decisions about my family without asking us." A pause. Not long, but visible. "Agreed." You hesitated. "I am used to acting quickly when threats appear. I am used to people calling their decisions protection." He accepted that with a small nod. "Then you will have veto power over any action involving your family." Dayan looked at Attorney Park. "Can veto power be written in a way that bites?" "It can," Attorney Park said. You slid one more paper across the table. "One more term. If you decide not to sign, my legal support for last night remains. The hotel evidence remains yours. I will not return you to Nam by withdrawing it." I stared at the paper, then at him. He had just removed the sharpest hook in the offer. It did not make him safe. It made him harder to dismiss. "Why?" His answer came after a beat. "Because a coerced spouse is weak evidence." Da-in snorted. "Romantic?" You looked at her. I was not attempting romance. Clearly. I should not have laughed. It slipped out once, dry and brief, and changed the room more than I expected. You looked at me as if he had discovered a drawer in a locked cabinet. I stopped laughing. He looked away first. I did not sign that day. I took copies home, read every line with Attorney Park until my eyes burned, argued over clauses until midnight, and had the conversation with Mireille I had promised. She admitted she had failed 2 classes, not because she lacked ability, but because she hated nursing and loved emergency response. She wanted to train as a paramedic. She had been afraid to tell me because I treated her tuition as proof that our suffering had a purpose. I apologized badly, then better. She cried in a way that made no sound. I agreed to stop making her future a monument to my fear. It was the first decision in months that had nothing to do with you, Ki-tae, or debt, and maybe that was why it mattered. The next day, I returned to work. That was my condition for myself. If my life could be moved entirely by scandal, then Ki-tae had won a piece of me. Da-in tried to send me home twice, then gave up and assigned me a 3-hour lecture on municipal signage because she knew boredom could steady a person. At lunch, 2 men in dark coats appeared near the building entrance. Before I could panic, one of them handed the security desk a formal notice and left. Dae-in read it aloud in the break room. Sarion Holdings had terminated all private information requests related to me, Mireille, and my mother, and warned third parties against unauthorized surveillance. The letter was signed by Yu's legal director, not Yu. It was useful, bloodless, and did not ask to be admired. At 3, a courier delivered Yu's jacket box. Inside was the jacket I had sent back through Attorney Park, now cleaned, and a smaller box containing my recorder. I froze until I realized it was not mine. It was a new one, professional grade, with a note written in neat black ink. Yours recorded fabric noise whenever you moved. This one is better. No tracking device. Your attorney may inspect it. Dae-in read over my shoulder. He gives terrifying gifts. It is evidence equipment. Still a gift. I am not accepting gifts. Then invoice him for emotional disturbance and keep it as partial payment. I called Attorney Park. She inspected the device, confirmed no tracking, and said keeping it would not compromise the negotiation if we listed it as safety equipment. I hated how relieved I felt. I hated more quietly that he had noticed the fabric noise. That evening, Kite called from a blocked number. I answered with Attorney Park recording beside me. He spoke gently, which meant he was angrier than before. You are embarrassing yourself. I am legally represented. You think Yu Jae-han will keep you. He is using you to spit in his father's face. When he is done, men like him clean the table. Then I will make sure I am not on it. You always liked sounding clever. His voice lowered. Your mother's clinic has a new board review next week. Attorney Park wrote, keep him talking on a pad. I said, threatening a patient now? I am reminding you that attention fades, family remains. My family is not you. He was silent long enough for the recording to feel heavy. You will come back before Friday, or I will show everyone what your father signed. Please do, I said, surprising myself. My attorney would love an original. When I hung up, my hands shook so hard the new recorder slid across the table. Attorney Park waited until I pressed my palms flat. He has something, she said. Maybe not the original, but something. Can we get ahead of it? Only with more leverage. More leverage meant you. I understood that without anyone saying it. The next morning, I signed the marriage agreement after 3 clauses were rewritten, 2 removed, and 1 added in language Dae-in called satisfyingly hostile. You signed across from me at the district office with 4 lawyers, 2 witnesses, and a clerk who tried very hard not to recognize either of us. There were no flowers, no rings, no vows. I wore a gray sweater because all my suits felt contaminated by Kite's dining room. You wore black. When the clerk asked whether we entered willingly, I answered first. Yes, I said, under the terms filed. The clerk blinked. You answered after me. Yes. Outside, reporters waited despite the private filing because secrets in Seoul often traveled faster than elevators. You turned to me before the doors opened. Do you want me to answer? No. He nodded once. Cameras rose. Questions hit like rain. Are you married? Is this revenge against Ha-seong? Did Nam Ki-tae force you? How long have you known Director Yu? Are you afraid? I stepped forward before you could become the story by existing. My legal status changed today, I said. I will not discuss private details. I will say this clearly. Any previous claim that I intended to marry Nam Ki-tae is false. My attorney is addressing coercion and forged debt through formal channels. I ask that my mother and cousin not be contacted. A reporter shouted, Is Director Yu protecting you? I felt Yu behind me, still as a closed door. I am protected by legal counsel, I said. Director Yu is bound by an agreement, like I am. The clip went viral because people enjoyed being disappointed by romance and confused by paperwork. By evening, half the internet called me cold. The other half called me brave. Both made me tired. Yu sent no message. That restraint felt deliberate, and I was annoyed that I noticed. The council vote happened 2 days later at Sarion's old headquarters near the river, a building with stone lions outside and enough cameras inside to make a person behave better or lie more efficiently. I attended because the agreement required one public appearance before Yu's family, and because not attending would allow them to invent me in my absence. Attorney Park came with me. Day-in insisted on styling my tie over video call, then told me not to let rich people smell fear, which was unhelpful and oddly comforting. Yu's father, Yu Jae-han, sat at the head of the council room with an oxygen tube under his nose and eyes sharp enough to make frailty look like another tactic. Around him were relatives, directors, legal advisors, and 2 men from the Haseong alliance whose collapsed plans had not improved their moods. Yu introduced me with my full name and profession, not as Omega, not as spouse first. This is Han Seon-u, accessibility editor and legal party to my registered marriage. Someone at the table gave a quiet laugh. Legal party? How touching. Yu looked at him. I was not speaking to touch you. I lowered my gaze to hide my expression. Attorney Park made a note, though I suspected it said impressive rudeness. Yu's father studied me. You caused trouble. I was already in trouble, I said. Your son provided better lighting. A ripple moved through the room. Yu's father did not smile, but his eyes narrowed with interest. Do you think wit protects you here? No, documents do. I brought those too. Attorney Park placed copies on the table. The coercive statement from Kitai's dinner, the hotel security log, the clinic board information, and proof that Haseong's intermediaries had coordinated with Nam Kitai's lender to pressure me into marriage. The room shifted. Polite antagonists became frightened accountants. One Haseong advisor whispered to another. Yu Jae-han turned a page with slow care. Yu had not told me everything. I understood that as I watched the evidence land. The scandal had not only broken his alliance, it had exposed that the alliance itself used Kitai's network to deliver omegas, debtors, and inconvenient families into controlled marriages. I was one case in a larger pattern. A useful case, perhaps, but real. A woman in a cream suit spoke from the middle of the table. Yu Jae-rin, Jae-han's aunt, according to the dossier Attorney Park made me memorize. She controlled Sarion's legitimate charitable foundation and had the kind of courtesy that could freeze water. Mr. Han, are you claiming my nephew married you out of moral outrage? No. That answer seemed to please her until I continued. I am claiming he married me because our problems intersected and both of us preferred legal leverage to becoming someone else's property. Motive does not erase effect. Yu Jae-rin's eyes moved to Jae-han. He speaks like a lawyer. Like an editor, I corrected. We are worse. We remove unnecessary decoration. Yu's youngest cousin laughed before covering it badly. Yu's father tapped the table once, and the sound ended amusement. The vote did not crown Yu because families like his preferred slow knives to clean ceremonies, but it delayed the Haseong alliance, suspended 2 directors, and required an internal audit. More importantly for me, Yu Jae-han signed a statement acknowledging that Sarion would not support Nam Ki-tae's claim and would cooperate with lawful inquiries into the lender. He did it because the evidence made refusal costly, not because goodness had visited him. I accepted the signature anyway. Motive did not erase effect. I had said it to them and needed to remember it for myself. After the meeting, Yu found me in the empty corridor outside the council room, where I was trying to breathe without looking like breathing required effort. "You should not have been left alone with my father's table," he said. "I was not alone. I had Attorney Park. She is formidable. She charges accordingly." His mouth moved slightly. "You did well." I looked at him. Praise from alphas often arrived with ownership tucked under it. This sounded different, plain, almost reluctant. So did my documents. Yes, they were arranged aggressively. I have hidden talents. I know. There was something in his tone that unsettled me more than the council had. Not possession, recognition. As if he had seen me in pieces, service corridor, lobby, office, hospital, council room, and had begun assembling an image without asking me to pose. Before I could decide how to respond, his phone buzzed. He read the message and the line of his jaw changed. "Nam filed a civil claim this morning, breach of marriage promise, emotional damages, repayment demand." I stared. "He is suing me for not marrying him." "Yes." I hate that I am not surprised. "My legal team can—" "My attorney will handle it," I said. He stopped. The old reflex had stepped forward. I had met it at the door. "Of course," he said. "Seon will provide requested evidence through her. And if I ask for your help, give it. Do not preempt me." A pause. Understood. The emotional turn, if I were editing my own life later, did not happen during a confession or a rescue. It happened in a storage room under Seon's old headquarters, where I had no reason to be except that Attorney Park asked me to review archived recordings for a possible witness statement. Yu's legal director brought me downstairs to a climate-controlled records room that smelled of paper, dust, and metal shelves. Yu was there already, sleeves rolled to his forearms, tie removed, standing before an open box. He looked startled to see me. That alone was unusual enough to make me stop. On the table lay an old cassette recorder, a child's red pencil case, and a stack of notebooks tied with string. Yu touched none of them when I entered. "I can come back," I said. "No." His voice was normal after one breath. "You are here for the Haseong call logs." "What are those?" He closed the box halfway, not fast enough. I saw the name written on the top notebook, Yu Jae-min. I knew from Darin's late-night research that Jae-min had been Yu's older brother, dead at 22 in a car accident described as weather-related by newspapers and as family-related by everyone who knew how to read between lines. Yu followed my gaze. "My brother recorded meetings, badly, mostly pockets and table noise." "As one does." The corner of his mouth did not move. His fingers rested beside the red pencil case. "He wanted to leave. He had documents. He trusted the wrong aunt." "Yu Jae-han?" A small nod. I waited. Silence can invite or pressure depending on how you hold it. I tried to hold it like an open door, not a hand. Yu said, "When I saw you in the service corridor, I thought of him for 1 second. That irritated me. Because I was inconvenient? Because I had already decided never to confuse someone else's escape with my failure to save him." The room seemed to settle around us. He did not look broken. He did not look transformed. He looked exactly like himself, except the hand near the pencil case had tightened enough to whiten the knuckles. That restraint made the confession heavier than tears would have. "You are not responsible for your brother trusting someone," I said. "No." He knew that. Knowledge had not freed him. I understood that too. "Are you responsible for me?" I asked. His gaze lifted. "No." "Do you believe that?" A pause. "I am learning to." The answer entered me quietly and did more damage than any grand declaration could have, because it acknowledged the work, because he did not pretend that one clause in a marriage agreement had rewritten the instincts of a man raised to secure, contain, and outmaneuver every threat, because he wanted to be different and did not ask me to call the wanting enough. He opened the box fully again. "These logs may show Haseong used the same lender network 10 years ago. If we use them, my brother becomes part of the public record. My father will call it betrayal. My aunt will call it desecration. What do you call it? He looked at the red pencil case. Late. I stepped closer, not touching him. Then decide as his brother first, CEO second. His breath left slowly. That is not how I was trained. No, it is why I said decide. He did not answer for a long time. Then he picked up the first notebook and handed it to the legal director. His control did not crack dramatically. It opened enough for an old voice to leave a box. The final pressure came from Yu Jae-han, not Ki-tae. She invited me to lunch at a restaurant too quiet to be profitable and spoke with such polished concern that I nearly admired the craftsmanship. She wore cream again, a color that seemed chosen to imply she had never needed to hide stains. My nephew has always been severe, she said after tea was poured. He mistakes endurance for virtue. You have encouraged some sentimental rebellion in him. I mostly encourage signed addendums. She smiled. You are clever. Clever Omegas often misread temporary elevation as safety. I was unsafe before I met your nephew. Please do not take credit. Her smile stayed. Jae-han will lose if he releases his brother's records. His father will remove him. The board will accept a compromise candidate. Ha-seong will recover. Nam Ki-tae will be inconvenient but manageable. You, however, will lose access to the legal shield currently around your family. I set my cup down. That sounds like a threat. It is advice. Divorce him before the hearing. State that he manipulated you. We will settle your father's debt, fund your mother's care, and place your cousin in a training program. You can return to a small, clean life. A life selected by you. A life without men like us. There was the blade, honest for once. She was offering the thing I wanted most with a chain through it. Freedom packaged by a woman who had buried Yu's brother in reputation management. What happens to the records? I asked. They remain private. And to the other families trapped by the lender network. Her face cooled. Do not become noble. Nobility is expensive and you cannot afford it. I thought of my mother asking whether gratitude could become marriage. I thought of Mireille accusing me of arranging the room around her. I thought of Yu looking at his brother's notebook and calling truth late. Then I thought of myself at 7 in the morning, apologizing to an elevator because I could not afford repairs I did not own. I was tired of powerful people offering me rooms where the door opened only from outside. I turned on the recorder in my pocket. The new one made no fabric noise. Repeat the offer, I said. Yu Jae-han's eyes sharpened. Do you think I came unprepared? I think you came confident. They are related, but not identical. She laughed softly. Jae-han has infected you with bad habits. No, I said. I had those before. I did not get everything. People like Yu Jae-han did not confess like villains in cheap dramas, but she said enough. Debt settlement, public statement, records remaining private, consequences if Yu proceeded. Attorney Park used the recording to secure an emergency injunction against further interference and to add Hyerin's meeting to the evidence chain. Yu found out only after the filing. He came to my apartment that night, alone except for the driver downstairs. I opened the door because I had agreed to the visit, not because his face on the intercom made my chest feel crowded. You should have told me, he said. Good evening to you, too. His expression was rigid. She could have hurt you. She ordered tea. Do not make this small. Do not make my decision yours. That stopped him at the threshold. Rain tapped lightly against the balcony door behind me. Seoul had entered another wet week, the kind that made laundry impossible and traffic furious. I am angry, he said after a moment. I noticed. Not at you. I know. I want to be. That would be simpler. He removed his shoes with careful motions and stood in my small entry as if afraid one wrong step would prove something ugly. I told myself I would not put you in my family's path. You did not put me there. I walked. Because of me. Because of Hyerin. Because of your brother's records. Because of families like mine and hers and Nam's. You are involved. You are not the only cause. He looked tired then, not physically, but in the way a wall might be tired after years of holding back water. If I withdraw the records, this stops. No, it changes shape. My father will cut the support if I lose the vote. The support account is funded for 12 months. I checked. His eyes flickered. Of course you did. You married an editor with anxiety and a good lawyer. I did. We stood there with the absurd domestic details around us, Mirai's extra sneakers by the cabinet, Da-in's borrowed steamer on a chair, and mismatched mugs drying beside the sink. The life I had insisted on keeping was not elegant. It was crowded, stubborn, and clearly mine. Yu looked at it as if it were a place he had no right to enter, but wanted to understand. I am dissolving the marriage after the hearing, he said. The words struck cleanly. For a second I had no answer. He continued, economical as ever, each sentence placed where it hurt least and mattered most. The protection remains. Legal funding remains. Housing remains until you choose otherwise. Your mother's clinic support will be moved to a trust administered by Attorney Park and Day-in as co-approver if she accepts. Your cousin's program will not be touched. I will sign everything before the hearing. You decided this without me? I prepared it. I am telling you before signing. Generous. His mouth tightened. I am trying to remove the coercion. And if I wanted a say in how, then say it. There it was, the central issue, stripped of family, debt, scandal, and reign. He was trying to free me by deciding freedom's shape. Better than a cage, yes, still built by his hands. I stepped aside. Come in, we are going to revise your noble self-sabotage. He looked at me. That is not a legal term. It will be by midnight. We sat at my kitchen table with tea Mirai had bought because the tin had a cartoon fox on it. Yu's draft was thorough, infuriatingly so. It provided everything. It asked nothing. It ended us with such clean generosity that I wanted to throw the mug at him. You think love is safest when it costs you everything and asks the other person for nothing, I said. His hand stilled on the paper. Yes, I said. I am using the word. Do not look as if I brought a weapon. You should not say that because you feel indebted. I am saying it because I feel angry. That is not better. It is more honest. I pushed the draft back. I will not stay married because I need protection. I will not divorce because you think sacrifice is respect. We dissolve the current agreement after the hearing. We replace the support with independent legal settlements as you proposed. Then we wait 30 days. No public dating performance, no living together, no obligations beyond what the law and evidence require. After 30 days, if I want to see you, I will ask. If you want to see me, you may ask. I may say no, so may you. He stared at the paper. That is inefficient. It is human. A faint, exhausted sound left him, almost a laugh, but too rough. I am not good at waiting. I know. I may fail. Then apologize and try again, or I walk. He looked up. You would? Yes. The answer did not frighten him the way I expected. It settled him. Perhaps certainty, even painful certainty, was easier for him than hope with hidden terms. What do you want now? He asked. The question was simple. No strategy inside it that I could hear. I looked at his hands on my cheap table, at the rain slipping down the balcony glass, at the papers between us that had tried and failed to define everything. I want you to stay for tea, I said. Then leave before midnight. His eyes lowered to the fox tin. I dislike sweet tea. It tastes like boiled candy. Then why do you own it? Mireille thinks packaging is destiny. I will stay for 1 cup. Consent could be smaller than people imagined. A cup, a departure, a promise not to turn tenderness into a trap before it learned its own name. The hearing took place 3 days later. It was not dramatic in the way television prefers. No one shouted, no doors slammed. Kitae's lawyer argued that I had breached a family-arranged promise. Attorney Park dismantled the claim with recordings, documents, and the calm expression of a woman enjoying herself professionally. Yu Jae-han's lunch offer entered the record. Yu's brother's notebooks were submitted under seal pending investigation. Yu Beom-seok's counsel attempted to distance the family from Haseong. Haseong attempted to distance itself from Nam. Nam attempted to distance himself from the word coercion and failed. I testified for 47 minutes. I said my father's debt had been used to pressure me. I said my uncle had misrepresented my consent. I said Yu Jae-han and I entered a legal arrangement for mutual protection, but that protection did not erase the coercion that made it necessary. I said I wanted the court to see the pattern, not just my bruised wrist in a hotel hallway. My voice shook once when I mentioned my mother. I kept speaking anyway. Yu testified after me. He did not make himself noble. He admitted he needed the scandal. He admitted the marriage helped his succession battle. He admitted he benefited from my public refusal. Then he looked at the judge and said, "That is why every benefit promised to Mr. Han must continue after dissolution. Otherwise, protection becomes another form of leverage." Reporters loved that sentence. I hated that they made it romantic. It was better than romantic. It was accountable. The court issued temporary protective orders, froze enforcement of the disputed debt, referred the forgery evidence for criminal review, and restricted Kitae from contacting my family. It was not the end. Legal endings are rarely clean, but it was the first official document in years that named what had happened to us without asking me to soften it. Afterward, Yu and I signed the dissolution papers in Attorney Park's conference room. Da-in served as witness and sniffed once, claiming dust. Mireille hugged Yu without warning, then threatened him quietly near the elevator. He listened with grave attention. "What did she say?" I asked when he returned. "That if I make you cry for stupid reasons, she will become a paramedic only to learn where injuries hurt most." "She will be excellent." I agree. On the 30th day, I asked Yu to meet me at a small kimbap place near the river, the kind with fogged windows and metal cups, where no one important would think to photograph us unless they had very sad hobbies. He arrived in a dark coat, no security visible, though I knew better than to assume none existed. I arrived 5 minutes late on purpose, then felt childish and annoyed with myself. He stood when I entered. "Mr. Han." "Seon-u," I said. A beat passed. "Seon-u." We ordered tuna kimbap and sujebi. He looked at the menu as if negotiation might be required. I ordered for him because watching him consider soup like a hostile document was painful. "You chose a public place," he said. "Yes." "Good." "You dislike it?" "I dislike that I cannot control exits. I like that you chose it." I took a metal cup from the stack and poured water. "That is a better answer than pretending." "I have been practicing." "With whom?" "My legal director. He says I am less alarming by approximately 9%. "Ambitious." The food arrived. For a while we ate. It was ordinary in a way that made my throat ache. Steam rising, old women talking near the counter, rain threatening outside but not yet falling. No cameras, no lawyers, no family counsel. Just the man who had needed a stranger and the Omega who had needed one night, sitting across from each other after every paper that forced us together had been signed away. "I missed you," he said. The spoon paused in my hand. He looked uncomfortable, but not regretful. The words were plain, almost austere. They did not ask me to fix them. "I missed you too," I said. "I was irritated about it." "That seems consistent." "You cannot be pleased by my irritation." "I can be relieved by your honesty." I looked down at the soup. "I am not entering your world as a spouse who gets managed." "No. I will keep my work." "Yes." "My apartment." "Yes." "My friends, my family, my own attorney, my right to leave any room." "Yes." "If we try this and it fails, you do not punish yourself by giving me half your company or vanishing into martyrdom." His mouth tightened. "That may require additional practice." "I am serious." "I know." He set his chopsticks down. "If we try, I will make mistakes. Not the kind my father made. Not intentionally. But habits leave marks. I need you to name them when I do not see them." "I will." "And if naming them becomes labor you do not want, you leave." "Yes." He nodded once. "Then I am asking to see you again, not as a strategy." I studied him, the controlled posture, the tired eyes, the hands resting open beside his bowl, because perhaps he had learned that closed fists said too much. I did not feel swept anywhere. I felt present, wary, fond, and free enough for the answer to belong to me. "Yes," I said, "but next time I choose somewhere with better kimchi." His shoulders loosened by a fraction. "Harsh." "Accurate." The months that followed did not turn us simple. Yu's family trials moved slowly. Kitae's lawsuit collapsed, then turned into a criminal investigation that made my uncle suddenly discover the convenience of illness. My father was found in Daejeon, alive and apologetic, in a way that still expected rescue. I met him once with Attorney Park beside me and left before anger could become caretaking. Mirai started emergency response training and labeled every item in my first aid kit with aggressive stickers. Dayan opened clear-line access editing in a second-floor office above a tailor, with windows that stuck in winter and a sign I designed myself. Yu came to the opening with rice cakes and no photographers. Dayan accepted the box, pointed at him, and said, "If you donate money without asking, I will reject it loudly." He answered, "I came as Seon-u's guest," which made her glare soften by approximately 1%. Later, after everyone left, he helped me sweep paper scraps from the floor and did it badly enough that I had to give instructions. He listened as if broom technique mattered, and perhaps it did, because love had become easier to trust when it arrived in small, correctable motions. Near the door, Dayan's old rabbit paperclip held our first signed client agreement to the bulletin board. Beside it, Mirai had pinned a photo from the opening. My mother laughing, Dayan scolding someone outside the frame, me holding too many folders, and Yu in the background with a broom angled like a weapon he did not know how to use. It was not evidence, not scandal, not a marriage notice. It was only a room we had entered freely. When rain began against the window, Yu stood beside me without closing the space until I reached for his hand, and his fingers waited for mine, steady and unhurried, while the city blurred gold beyond the glass and no document lay between us asking to be signed.